Tomorrow will be the final day of finishing all 5 books of Tanya. And of course, then we start again. So, important days coming up. Yutis Kislev, Chav Kislev, Chag HaChagim, the holiday of holidays. The Alter Rebbe is released from prison. And we begin learning Tanya anew from the beginning. Whatever we learned, we gotta learn more in order that we can not just learn it, but teach it, not just teach it, but live it. So today we begin and end the 8th essay in Kuntres Achre. This essay, the Alter Rebbe writes that I've heard with foreboding and deeply grieved, writes the Alter Rebbe, that the prayer service in a particular place, there's either an individual or individuals who, comes the morning. People are in a rush. They're in a rush, to get to work. They're in a rush for other things that they have responsibilities and so on and so forth. And the Alter Rebbe writes that this is preventing God's people who yearn for life and longevity to pray with length. As our sages say, that praying at length brings longevity to the years of an individual. And there are people who are in the service, or an individual who is rushed, and therefore rushing the service. So he says it's far better off to forego the communal parts of the service of this individual who's in a rush, or individuals that are in a rush, to forego it, rather than tamper with the lives those who desire life, meaning that they want to pray at length. And moreover, the Shliach Tzibor, the one who leads the congregation, will discharge those people who are forced because of livelihood, forced because, sometimes you got to take your kids to school, or, you've got other responsibilities that force you to leave a minyan, a quorum of prayer, early. But you get discharged with your duty of what your prayers need to be done in a quorum, in a minyan, by the leader of the service. So even if you didn't hear Baruch Hu and Kiddusha, for those who are familiar with those parts in the prayer service, those are the things that are done, by way of example, with a minyan, with a quorum. So if you didn't hear those things, because you are forced, again, because of other responsibilities, then it's as if you did fulfill that and discharge, and you're discharged with that obligation. As a result, why? Because a person who's under a duress of other responsibilities are fulfilled, and therefore they should not put duress on the rest of the minyan in order to pray quickly, because in that service, in that quorum, in that minyan, there are people who want to pray at greater length, because that's life. So the Alter Rebbe says that this was even regarding earlier generations, 1,500 plus years ago, the sages in the times of the Mishnah in the Gemara, from the Talmud, who Torah study was their main and primary way to serve God, not prayer. Yet they spoke about prolonged prayer, that it relates to life and longevity of life. It gives life and it gives long life. So this is even more true in our time, because in our time, on the footsteps of Mashiach, Torah study is not the main way to serve God, because of the challenges and difficulties of our time, the darkness of the exile that we live in. And our primary service, as written in Eitz Chaim, Pri Eitz Chaim, from the teachings of the Arizal, as written down by Rabbi Chaim Vital, that the primary service today, preceding the coming Mashiach, is prayer, not Torah study. So then surely it's fitting and proper that you should devote yourself as best as you can to prayer daily, and don't allow those who are under duress to control the service and speed it up, right? That's the first point the Alter Rebbe makes. Second point is that aside from the prolonged prayer, there also needs to be a contemplation about God's greatness, as a part of prayer or preparation to prayer, that we need to meditate upon God and his greatness as creator, as the one who needs our mitzvah. And in order that when you come to pray, like giving praise to God, that it shouldn't just be, an act of on autopilot. Especially when the prayers are said every day. Prayers are said every day, and in the prayer book and the Siddur, you get to know it, and you get to know it even by heart. What happens with knowing prayers by heart is that you just say it without a heart. It's a challenge. I know. I do it every day, and it's a challenge. It's very easy to say it without a heart because you know the words. So therefore, you need some kind of meditation beforehand to allow you that when you come to praising God in Psuki de Zimra, or in the two blessings that precede the Shema, that you should do it with a heart, in order that when you come actually to the Shema, that you have openly some kind of feeling in your heart. Because after all, what does the Shema say? The Shema says, and you shall love the Lord God with all your heart. So you need that prep before that. So you need the meditation, and then the words of prayer, that they are done with heartfulness, that you come to then where we're commanded actually to love God. B'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha, and you shall love the Lord your God, which is reckoned as the first mitzvah of the 613 mitzvahs according to Maimonides' teachings, being that it is the fundament of Torah and the root of all of the 248 positive commandments. How could you command love? Either you got the feeling, you don't got the feeling. You can't command, hey, you, love God. Hey, you, love this person. Can't. Either you got it, the love or not. Can't command it. What you can command is think about God. Meditate about the greatness of God. And that will lead you to a love of him. So, the latent love that is in the heart cannot be commanded, but that meditation can be. In order that we bring out what is latent in our heart, because our soul is there, is reflected in our heart, to bring out and reveal the latent love that is there, and bring it and reveal it. Reveal it, ultimately. So not only will you then love God with your latent love, but when you reveal it, it'll overflow from the right ventricle of the heart to the left ventricle of the heart, where you have your animal soul there. Your animal soul that is self-directed, self-loving. And then you'll be able to bring that love of God to the love of the animal soul, the vital soul that gives vitality to your being. And through doing that, you know what you do then? You actually bring a refinement. You bring an elevation of the sparks which is a refinement through prayer. Because, as we've learned in the past, when God created the world, there was at one point, Shvir Sakilin, the shattering of the vessels, because the light was too great and the vessel to contain the light was not sufficient. That produced shards that of sparks of holiness that fell into the material world, into places that's covered over a klipa, a shell that covers over on the life-giving force on the inside, just like the shell of an orange, the peel of the orange covers over on the life-giving fruit on the inside. So likewise, this is covered over, and now by meditating about the greatness of God, meditating, and then through that meditation coming to pray and give praise to God, and then come to the love of God as is expressed in the Shema, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, then you're able to bring a love not only that is inherent to your godly soul, but you're going to reveal it, that it's now going to affect and elevate your animal soul, that self-loving soul, and it too will have a love of God, and therefore what you're doing is taking the hidden holiness there and elevating it, that goodness that's there, whether you're doing it through bending yourself or transforming yourself. That's what will happen. Now, in early generations, the sages were able to do that very quickly, so therefore their prayers were much shorter than in our day and age. But prayers have been added since. And the reason for that is because we're a lower generation. We can't really get to the love of God so quickly. We can't just go like this and think and meditate for a moment, and we can just bring us to ourselves there. We need a much lengthier process, and as opposed to previous generations. But the prayers will ultimately bring a self-refinement to the individual because of that meditation, and bring the latent love and expressing it in a way that it will also bring the vital/animal soul and engage it in the love of God. But and this will suffice for the discerning, the Alter Rebbe concludes the letter. What's the difference between the love of the godly soul and the love of an animal soul? Towards God, that is. So the godly soul's love is for no reason, just because it's a part of God. It seeks to connect to God beyond rationale, and ready even to give up its life for the connection. So a Jew will give up their lives rather than convert. Throughout generations, that was for the most part, not always, but for the most part, that was the case. Why? Because there's an inherent love of the godly soul that just seeks to be connected because it is connected, not for a reason or for an advantage. The animal soul, though, can be convinced to love God rather than to love cheesecake, rather than to love materiality. Why? Because it's good for it. Just like it feels like materiality is good for the animal soul, it could be taught, it could be convinced that connection to God is more advantageous. You can delight in an apple, you can delight in music, it's a little more abstract. You can delight in ideas, even more abstract than music. And you can delight in godliness, which is even more abstract. right? All of them you can delight in. So the animal soul can delight in its connection to God, knowing and sensing and feeling the value in it. That's the animal soul's love. Godly soul is not because of any value it wants to connect. It just wants to connect because it comes from there. It's connected. It's like a little child. Why did a little child want to cling to the parent? Not because, there's some kind of value, recognize, like an older, more mature individual, recognize, let me connect to my parents because, they have some wisdom that they could share with me. They can really help and enhance my life. So the connection is based on a reason, a good reason. It's wonderful, but it's a reason. That's the animal soul. The godly soul is for no reason, just because I'm connected. That's why I want to connect, because I am indeed connected. So the truth is, we need both in our relationship with God and all human relations. Likewise, we need both. We need both. The foundation of it is because I am connected. So reveal that, and then that will be able to bring value to the connection. Likewise, we don't start because of the value. That's not the healthy way, although most of the times that's what we do, but that's not the true way, not what we learned over here at least. And that's it. Okay, good luck, Greta. Erica, your eldest daughter's birthday, Mazel Tov. Very nice. Looking for any questions, any comments. All right, folks. Thank you, Stan, Greta. Tomorrow, make a siyum, conclusion of the 5 books of Tanya. And many of you have been here from the beginning. So it's a conclusion that we make together. And of course, from there we will come back to restart from the beginning and take it up a notch. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Tzurich and Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you, Tanya. Have a wonderful day.